We can't forget that 1,500 people were charged. 667 of them went to prison, while about 500 others are still awaiting their day in court or sentence. People died that day. There's still the reality of what happened, but also how this new administration wants to change how we all see what actually happened that day.
Well, also 140 Capitol police officers were injured that day, Kira, brutalized. I mean, many still have PTSD from what they've encountered that day. I've talked to them, and they'll tell you that directly. To your point on the rewriting of history of January 6th, I mean, we've been conducting what is now more than a year long of an investigation into efforts by Donald Trump and his allies to rewrite the history of January 6th, to rebrand it, to say that those who are currently serving prison time for January 6th are quote-unquote hostages or political prisoners, as the president-elect has done repeatedly and did on the campaign trail. Also, to downplay the violence that we saw that day. And one of the open questions now with Donald Trump returning to the White House is, how is January 6th remembered? I mean, the Republicans in this Congress have not gone forward with any kind of a monument or an honor to the officers of January 6th. This has been talked about in other Congresses. There's this kind of storyline percolating here on the Hill of a plaque that was supposed to be placed in honor of the January 6th officers that at least up until the end of the last Congress last week, right before Mike Johnson was sworn in, has not been placed, and that was supposed to be legally required to be placed, if I'm correct. Point being is, one of the January 6th defendants I talked to in this investigation has said to me that history is written by the victors. And they believe that if Donald Trump returns to the White House, which he is now going to come January 20th, that it will completely reframe the public's thinking of January 6th. And one of the things we've heard from top Democrats, from President Biden on to Chuck Schumer and down, is that they hope the American public doesn't reframe January 6th and doesn't have a warped perception of the truth of that day, Kira.